Yesterday by Haruki Murakami. As far as I know, the only person ever to put Japanese lyrics to the Beatles song Yesterday, and to do so in the distinctive Kansai dialect, no less, was a guy named Kitaru. He used to belt out his own version when he was taking a bath. Yesterday is 2 days before tomorrow, the day after 2 days ago. This is how it began, as I recall. But I haven't heard it for a long time and I'm not positive that's how it went. From start to finish, though Kitaru's lyrics were almost meaningless, nonsense that had nothing to do with the original words. That familiar lovely, melancholy melody paired with the breezy Kansai dialect, which you might call the opposite of pathos, made for a strange combination. A bold denial of anything constructive. At least, that's how it sounded to me. At the time, I just listened and shook my head. I was able to laugh it off, but I also read a kind of hidden import in it. I first met Kitaru at a coffee shop near the main gate of Waseda University, where we worked part-time, I in the kitchen and Kitaru as a waiter. We used to talk a lot during downtime at the shop. Kitaru is an unusual last name, I said one day. Yeah, for sure, Kitaru replied in his heavy Kansai accent. The Lotte baseball team had a pitcher with the same name. The two of us aren't related. Not so common a name though, so who knows? Maybe there is a connection somewhere. I was a sophomore at Waseda then, in the literature department. Kitaru had failed the entrance exam and was attending a prep course to cram for the retake. He'd failed the exam twice, actually, but you wouldn't have guessed it by the way he acted. He didn't seem to put much effort into studying. When he was free, he read a lot, but nothing related to the exam, a biography of Jimi Hendrix. Books of shogi problems, where did the universe come from, and the like. He told me that he commuted to the cram school from his parents' place in Ottawa, in Tokyo, Ottawa. I asked, astonished. But I was sure you were from Kansai. No way. Dene chofu, born and bred. This really threw me. Then how come you speak Kansai dialect? I asked. I acquired it. Just made up my mind to learn it. Acquired it? Yeah, I studied hard, see. Verbs, nouns, accent, the whole 9 yards. Same as studying English or French. Went to Kansai for training, even. So there were people who studied Kansai dialect as if it were a foreign language. That was news to me. It made me realize all over again how huge Tokyo was, and how many things there were that I didn't know. Reminded me of the novel Sanshiro. A typical country boy bumbles his way around the big city story. As a kid, I was a huge Hanshin Tigers fan, Kitaru explained. Went to their games whenever they played in Tokyo. But if I sat in the Hanshin bleachers and spoke with a Tokyo dialect, nobody wanted to have anything to do with me. Couldn't be part of the community, why no? So, I figured, I gotta learn Kansai dialect, and I worked like a dog to do just that. That was your motivation? I could hardly believe it, right? That's how much the Tigers mean to me, Kitaru said. Now Kansai dialect's all I speak, at school, at home, even when I talk in my sleep. My dialect's near perfect, don't you think? Absolutely. I was positive you were from Kansai, I said, if I'd put as much effort into studying for the entrance exams as I did into studying Kansai dialect, I wouldn't be a two-time loser like I am now. He had a point. Even his self-directed put-down was kind of Kansai, like, "So where are you from?" He asked. "Kansai." "Near Kobe," I said. "Near Kobe. Where?" "Asia," I replied. "Wow, nice place. Why didn't you say so from the start?" I explained. When people asked me where I was from and I said Asia, they always assumed that my family was wealthy. But there were all types in Asia. My family, for one, wasn't particularly well off. My dad worked for a pharmaceutical company and my mom was a librarian. Our house was small and our car a cream-colored Corolla. So when people asked me where I was from, I always said near Kobe, so they didn't get any preconceived ideas about me. "Man, sounds like you and me are the same," Kitaru said. "My address is Denechofu, a pretty high-class place, but my house is in the shabbiest part of town." "Shabby house as well. You should come over sometime. You'll be like, WHA. This is Denechofu?" "No way. But worrying about something like that makes no sense, yeah? It's just an address." I do the opposite, hit him right up front with the fact that I'm from Denechofu. "Like, how do you like that, huh?" I was impressed. And after this we became friends. Until I graduated from high school, I spoke nothing but Kansai dialect. But all it took was a month in Tokyo for me to become completely fluent in Tokyo Standard. I was kind of surprised that I could adapt so quickly. Maybe I have a chameleon type of personality. Or maybe my sense of language is more advanced than most people's. Either way, no one believed now that I was actually from Kansai. Another reason I stopped using Kansai dialect was that I wanted to become a totally different person. When I moved from Kansai to Tokyo to start college, I spent the whole bullet train ride mentally reviewing my 18 years and realized that almost everything that had happened to me was pretty embarrassing. I'm not exaggerating. I didn't want to remember any of it, it was so pathetic. The more I thought about my life up to then, the more I hated myself. It wasn't that I didn't have a few good memories, I did. A handful of happy experiences. But if you added them up, the shameful, painful memories far outnumbered the others. When I thought of how I'd been living, how I'd been approaching life, it was all so trite, so miserably pointless. Unimaginatively middle-class rubbish, and I wanted to gather it all up and stuff it away in some drawer. Or else light it on fire and watch it go up in smoke. Though what kind of smoke it would emit I had no idea. Anyway, I wanted to get rid of it all and start a new life in Tokyo as a brand new person. Jettisoning Kansai dialect was a practical, as well as symbolic, method of accomplishing this. Because, in the final analysis, the language we speak constitutes who we are as people. At least that's the way it seemed to me at 18. Embarrassing? What was so embarrassing? Kitaru asked me. You name it. Didn't get along with your folk, we get along okay, I said. But it was still embarrassing. Just being with them made me feel embarrassed. I couldn't really explain it. What's so bad about having a cream-colored Corolla? I couldn't say. My parents weren't interested in spending money for the sake of appearances. That's all. My parents are on my case all the time cause I don't study enough. I hate it, but what I gonna do? That's their job. You gotta look past that. Why no? You're pretty easygoing, aren't you? I said. You got a girl? Kitaru asked. Not right now. But you had one before. Until a little while ago. You guys broke up. That's right, I said. Why would you break up? It's a long story. I don't want to get into it. She let you go all the way. I shook my head. No, not all the way. That's why you broke up. I thought about it. That's part of it. But she let you get to third base. Rounding third base. How far do you go, exactly? I don't want to talk about it, I said. Is that one of those embarrassing things you mentioned? Yeah, I said. Man, complicated life you got there, Kitaru said. The first time I heard Kitaru sing yesterday with those crazy lyrics, he was in the bath at his house in Denechofu, which, despite his description, was not a shabby house in a shabby neighborhood but an ordinary house in an ordinary neighborhood, an older house, but bigger than my house in Asia, not a standout in any way, and incidentally, the car in the driveway was a navy blue Golf, a recent model. Whenever Kitaru came home, he immediately dropped everything and jumped in the bath. And once he was in the tub, he stayed there forever. So I would often look a little round stool to the adjacent changing room and sit there, talking to him through the sliding door that was open an inch or so. That was the only way to avoid listening to his mother drone on and on, mostly complaints about her weird son and how he needed to study more. Those lyrics don't make any sense, I told him. It just sounds like you are making fun of the song yesterday. Don't be a smartass. I'm not making fun of it. Even if I was, you gotta remember that John loved nonsense and word games. Right, but Paul's the one who wrote the words and music for yesterday. You sure about that? Absolutely, I declared. Paul wrote the song and recorded it by himself in the studio with a guitar. A string quartet was added later, but the other Beatles weren't involved at all. They thought it was too wimpy for a Beatles song. Really? I'm not up on that kind of privileged information. It's not privileged information. It's a well-known fact, I said. Who cares? Those are just details, Kitaru's voice said calmly from a cloud of steam. I'm singing in the bath in my own house. Not putting out a record or anything. I'm not violating any copyright or bothering a soul. You have got no right to complain, and he launched into the chorus, his voice carrying loud and clear. He hit the high notes especially well. I could hear him lightly splashing the bathwater as an accompaniment. I probably should have sung along to encourage him, but I just couldn't bring myself to. Sitting there, talking through a glass door to keep him company while he soaked in the tub for an hour wasn't all that much fun. But how can you spend so long soaking in the bath? I asked. Doesn't your body get all swollen? When I soak in a bath for a long time, all kinds of good ideas come to me, Kitaru said. You mean like those lyrics to yesterday? Well, that would be one of them, Kitaru said. Instead of spending so much time thinking up ideas in the bath, shouldn't you be studying for the entrance exam? I asked. Geez, aren't you a downer? My mom says exactly the same thing. Aren't you a little young to be, like, the voice of wisdom or something? But you have been cramming for 2 years. Aren't you getting tired of it? For sure. Of course I wanna be in college as soon as I can. Then why not study harder? Yeah, well, he said, drawing the words out. If I could do that, I'd be doing it already. College is a drag, I said. I was totally disappointed once I got in. But not getting in would be even more of a drag. Fair enough, Kitaru said. I got no comeback for that. So why don't you study? Lack of motivation, he said. Motivation? I said. Shouldn't being able to go out on dates with your girlfriend be good motivation? There was a girl Kitaru had known since they were in elementary school together. A childhood girlfriend, you could say. They'd been in the same grade in school, but unlike him she had got into Sofia University straight out of high school. She was now majoring in French literature and had joined the tennis club. He'd shown me a photograph of her, and she was stunning. A beautiful figure and a lively expression. But the two of them weren't seeing each other much these days. They'd talked it over and decided that it was better not to date until Kitaru had passed the entrance exams so that he could focus on his studies. Kitaru had been the one who suggested this. Okay, she'd said, if that's what you want. They talked on the phone a lot but met at most once a week, and those meetings were more like interviews than regular dates. They'd have tea and catch up on what they'd each been doing. They'd hold hands and exchange a brief kiss, but that was as far as it went. Kitaru wasn't what you'd call handsome, but he was pleasant-looking enough. He was slim, and his hair and clothes were simple and stylish. As long as he didn't say anything, you'd assume he was a sensitive, well-brought-up city boy. His only possible defect was that his face, a bit too slender and delicate, could give the impression that he was lacking in personality or was wishy-washy. But the moment he opened his mouth, this overall positive effect collapsed like a sandcastle under an exuberant Labrador retriever. People were dismayed by his concise dialect, which he delivered as if that weren't enough, in a slightly piercing, high-pitched voice. The mismatch with his looks was overwhelming. Even for me it was, at first, a little too much to handle. Hey, Tanemura, aren't you lonely without a girlfriend? Kitaru asked me the next day. I don't deny it, I told him. Then how about you go out with my girl? I couldn't understand what he meant. What do you mean, go out with her? She's a great girl. Pretty, honest, smart like all get out. You go out with her, you won't regret it. I guarantee it. I'm sure I wouldn't, I said. But why would I go out with your girlfriend? It doesn't make sense. 'Cause you're a good guy, Kitaru said. Otherwise I wouldn't suggest it. Erika and I have spent almost our whole lives together so far. We sort of naturally became a couple. And everybody around us approved. Our friends, our parents, our teachers. A tight little couple, always together. Kitaru clasped his hands to illustrate. Both 20, our birthdays only a week apart.